So everyone, let's welcome Ralph, and we appreciate you being here.
All right, so like Andy said, my family has been in the floral industry. I'm a fourth generation. My family's been in the floral industry for over 100 years. Let that sink in for just a second. 100 years. We started by pushing flower and fruit carts down the streets of Manhattan, and it evolved into a flower shop, funeral home combination, then flower shop and funeral home separate, and that's how it lived for about 60 to 70 years. Currently, I am the last Giordano in the floral industry. My family has since closed their flower shop in New York just prior to COVID. Everyone retired and nobody wanted to run the business, and I was here in Florida running my own business. We still have the funeral home. We have branched out with several locations on the funeral home, so that part of our business is still flourishing. And I named my flower shop here in Florida after my family flower shop. The family flower shop in the Bronx is called Giordano's Pelham Bay Florist in Pelham Bay, the Bronx, New York. So my flower shop is called Giordano's Floral Creations. So it's a name to an homage to my great-grandparents and my grandparents and so on and so on. So as you can imagine, I've learned a lot just from my family. But things change. Technology changes. I mean, think about our iPhones. We have to change them every year because the technology improves, right? So the same is about care and handling. What we did 50 years ago, we don't do today because of the advancements in technology. A lot of you guys are students, and a lot of you don't even understand or know what any of this stuff is, right? But by the time you leave here, you will. And you're going to understand the importance of this. A lot of these products are actually available through Amazon right now, and FloraLife has a home division of the basics of these that you can buy through Amazon. They're smaller little quart-sized bottles, so roughly about that much of it. So it gives you a chance to be able to utilize these things at home and learn how to work with them and use them, okay? So my program today, everyone, or mostly everyone, I only had 60, so they might be spread out. If no one's sitting at a seat and you want one, grab it. So FloraLife gave me this beautiful little brochure, right? And they are going through a rebranding. FloraLife is part of the Smithers Oasis family, hence why I left all Donald's stuff up here, because we both technically are sponsored by the same company, parent company. So I'm particularly sponsored by FloraLife. And they're going through a rebranding, and they're very eco-friendly, just like Smithers Oasis. So a lot of the labels that you see here are what you're going to start seeing in the industry. These are some of the original labels. These haven't made it to the market completely yet as far as the labeling goes. The product has not changed. It has evolved, but the product has not changed to this. So you're not going to get something new here versus what you see here. So don't be confused by the labels themselves. Attached to that, I did a little breakdown for you because I have a lot of information. It's hard to absorb all this information. So it's 2 pages. One is processing steps. These are basic processing steps that pretty much every florist should know and should practice. The back side of it is what's called COGS breakdown. So the people in the industry and the business owners, they know what COGS stand for. Do any of the students know what the word COGS stands for? COGS stands for cost of goods sold. It's how you make money in this industry. And there's a breakdown on how it should format a business model, how your business should run in order to be profitable. Now I'm going to talk to you about how the two merge and how by using the proper processes and the proper post-harvest products, how it can increase your profit in your business. Now, if you're a student, you're not necessarily worried about profit. You're worried about learning how to create beautiful art and learning, hopefully, how to take care of that, flowers to there. But eventually one day, the numbers aspect of it is going to come very important. Whether you work for somebody or whether you start your own business or whether you freelance or do a little side hustle or whatever, knowing the numbers and knowing how the business operates is valuable to the longevity of our industry. You guys are our future. I'm just helping cement that in. If you look at the processing steps, and I'm not asking you guys to read along, but if you look at the processing steps, I talk about buying your product in bulk and how this can help you save money. So for the students, for the people in the industry, we know what this stand means. So what we do is there are growers, and the growers sell boxes of product. They can be all one solid item or varieties depending on who it is and what you get from. And those typically go to either the retail florists or directly to event people or to what's called a wholesale house. And a wholesale house then in turn typically breaks that box apart into individual bunches and then sells it to the retail floor. So as you can imagine, the more hands that touch something, the more that product is going to cost. So if you buy it from the grower at one price and buy it from a wholesaler at another, it's going to cost you more because it's touched many hands. Now some people think, well, I don't need 400 white roses. I only want 100. Well, like Andy said, you can store product. If you take care of it correctly, you can buy it in larger quantities, you store it, you take care of it, and you store it correctly, and that can extend the life of the product. So now instead of you buying one bunch at X amount, you buy 4 to 8 bunches at X amount. That is dramatically lower. And by the time you get to all of those bunches and you use them up, your profit margin has just increased because you were able to buy it low and sell it high. So that process goes throughout everything that we buy. It can go throughout everything we buy. There are some delicate items in the industry that don't last extremely long, and those are things that you're just going to have to learn on your own. There's just too many varieties out there to really say specifically which one you can't do this to. But all of your most common flowers that you're going to see in most flower shops, or you're going to see in the grocery store, you're going to see at Kroger's or something along those lines. Most of these flowers have an easy dry storage time of 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Now, if you don't realize, some of those items have already been stored for weeks. Stored correctly from the farm at the proper temperature, taking care of ethylene, taking care of all the things that are harmful to flowers. It's when they leave that environment and they come to us that we need to take those extra steps. We need to continue what the farms have done to keep this product alive and to keep it great for our customers. Because in a sense, whether you're a student or an owner, you eventually have a customer. Your students, the customer is yourself, right? You buy flowers, you want to design art, you want to enjoy them. Well, if they only die in 2 days, are you really going to go out and buy more flowers? You're not going to like this industry. For the owners and the employees of owners, your customers are what keep the store rolling and keep it going. So by extending the life of the product and extending the life in the customer's hands is going to get them coming back and buying more and more and more. All right. So I'm going to walk through the steps and I'm going to talk to you about what you do when you first receive a box of flowers. You can do this same process if you're buying from the wholesaler as well. Typically when you buy from a wholesaler, sometimes it has already seen water. It's already been drinking. This particular process is best for dry packed product. What that means to the students is it has not seen water since it left the plant, since it's been harvested. It's dry packed. Okay, so it goes into a dormant stage. And what we want to do is we want to keep it as live as long as possible before we start to make that clock start ticking, that lifespan of that clock. So what you want to do is, like Donald said earlier, foliage helps to bring water uptake to the bloom. And it is what makes the flower turgid. That means hardened, like a rose, nice and strong, right? But too much foliage, especially in a wrapped bunch inside a box, can harbor too much moisture. And what does moisture in a dark location turn into? Mold, right? And you think mold's good for flowers? No. I mean, we might live off penicillin, which is some form of a mold, but flowers ain't going to do that. So by removing some of that excess foliage, and the general rule of thumb, each flower is a little bit different. Again, you have to learn these on your own, and that just takes time. But for a general rule of thumb, I always say from a quarter of the way from the top down is what you want to remove. That quarter of the way is going to leave just enough foliage on from when it comes time to hydrate that product, that's going to improve that water uptake. When you start using things like this, that's going to also help to improve the water uptake. So by cleaning that foliage, it reduces that moisture, it reduces the chance of bacteria, it reduces the chance of mold, it extends the life in the box. So from a business perspective, if you buy a box, you're going to clean as much as you can. You leave the grower wrappers on. You put that off to the side. When you're all done, you kind of neatly pack it back in the box, and in the cooler it goes. Never sees water. You just cleaned it. And then what you do from that point forward is you use your dry packed product exactly like your wholesaler would. You have an order for white roses tomorrow. You got a box of 100 sitting in there. You take that box, you cut one of those bunches of roses, you put it in the water to hydrate with the proper post-harvest product, and by the next day, you're ready to go. And you can use that just like the regular life, right? So when I say hydrate that product, Okay, there's several products out on the market. There is one that's very in particular that a lot of us in the industry use, and it's called Quick Dip. Okay, it's probably the most popular hydration product on the market. What you do with Quick Dip is you do exactly what the name says. You cut, you dip, and you put it into water. Okay, so what that's doing is when you're dipping, you're killing bacteria that might have been on that stem or might have been on your cutting tool, and you're increasing the water uptake, allowing it to become turgid. Okay, so I'm going to give you a whole bunch of new terms for you guys. All right, so your flour is going to become turgid, and they're going to hold up stronger and longer. Okay, now here is one mistake that most people do when they use Quick Dip. They go straight from Quick Dip right to flour food. You shouldn't do that. Yep. So you shouldn't do that unless you are looking for that botanical to open as fast as possible. So from an event standpoint, you may want those lilies to open fast. You may want those roses to open fast. But from a retail side or your own personal use, you want that botanical to last as long as possible. So instead of going from Quick Dip right into flour food, which is sugars, which is what the flour needs to develop to its full potential, we have a product called Clear 200. Now what Clear 200 does is it gives just enough nutrients for the botanical to stay alive, kind of slows down that clock, improves water uptake, kills bacteria. So again, what's the biggest killer of flowers? Bacteria, right? So anything that we can do to limit bacteria is beneficial for the botanical itself, whichever botanical that is, all right? So Quick Dip to 200, 200 to 300, okay? So Quick Dip to holding, this is called a holding solution, 200, to a flour food, 300, okay? Now, do we know, especially the students, the difference between cold hydration and room temperature or warm hydration? Do you think there's any difference? Cold is absolutely better. So scientific studies have proven that there's no difference in water uptake regarding the temperature of the water. But what does change is the amount of bacteria that can grow in that water. And we go right back to that same thing. Bacteria kills flour. So anytime you're processing and you're hydrating something, the best practice, whether you dip and go into 200 or dip and go into food, you want that water to be cold. It's better for the botanical. Now, how do you get that water cold? Well, shop owners have coolers. So my suggestion is always put the bucket in the cooler, let it get to the cooler temperature a few hours or overnight. I fill my buckets up overnight in advance. If you're at an event and you're hydrating there at the event, we use ice. Throw some ice in the bucket. It's not going to be as effective as putting in the cooler, but you're going to bring down the temperature of that water. And that's going to be effective, okay? There's a product that I love, and it's called HydroFlora. So HydroFlora is a close relative to Quick Dip. It is less commonly known, but in my opinion, it's better. In my opinion, it saves on time and labor. So I just talked to you about you cut and you dip, right? And then you drop it into a bucket of water. But what if you cut and dropped it right into that bucket of water and you skipped a step of dipping, as well as the fact that now you can take that same bucket of water and reuse it for up to a week? How much labor is that going to save? How much time is that going to save? It's going to speed up the process a lot, okay? With HydroFlora, it does the same thing Quick Dip does. It opens up the xylem, the flower capillary, right? I mean, most of you guys that are in the agriculture aspect, you know what all that stuff means, all those terms mean, right? So what these products do is it kills the bacteria, it opens up the capillaries that we call them, the xylem, and it improves that better water uptake to make the flour turgid, okay? So by using something like a HydroFlora, you just fill your buckets up for the week. Like me, I fill up a dozen 5-gallon buckets in the beginning on Monday. My product comes in on Tuesday. I put it through this process. We clean everything. My average amount of boxes that I get in weekly is 50. Sometimes we get 60, 70, 80. Sometimes we get 30 or 40, just depending on the week, but 50 boxes. So we take one day, just one day, and we clean all of that product. We get it all ready. We put it back in the boxes. We label if we need to, and we put it in the cooler. And then we just do that process that I just said. When I need something, take it out of the box, cut it, throw it right into my pre-made HydroFlora bucket. Oop, that was hydrangea. HydroFlora, there we go. Put it right into the HydroFlora that's in the cooler. Let it drink in the cooler overnight. 24 hours is the ideal recommendation, minimum of 2 hours. 2 hours is what the botanical needs to become turgid. Less than 2 hours, you're jeopardizing the fact of it fully hydrating. 24 hours, you're guaranteeing the fact that it has fully hydrated. And again, a fully hydrated botanical lasts longer, happy customers, happy individual, right? Happy flowers.
All right, so in the bucket for 24 hours.
Yes.
And then I change to the flour food clear 200.
Yes.
And I keep that bucket to be reused.
So it depends on what you're going to do. Okay, so if you're using it for, let's say, a retail environment and you have your flowers on display and they're there for X number of days, then it's going to live in 200. 200 is its holding solution. I joke around in the industry, everyone that's in the industry and they know the funeral home business, obviously the kids probably don't. There's when most people pass away, they are embalmed, okay, and that kind of like preserves the body for a certain amount of time for them to be viewed and the grieving family can say their goodbyes. Well, I joke and say that 200 is the embalming fluid for flowers. It gives it just enough nutrients to stay alive, which extends its storage life, which in turn extends its shelf life, which in turn makes happy customers, right? So, and happy customers lead to higher profits, right? Okay. So, we clean, we cut, we throw into our hydro bucket, or we dip and we throw it into our 200, okay? That process, you want, like I said, 24 hours, okay? That's what's needed. Now, you can keep the product in there for up to a week, but most people want to use it quicker, right? So that's when you move it to the 200, like I said, okay? If you skip steps, you break the chain of how it lives and what it needs. By making sure it goes into each step, you're giving it the best possible chance. They also have one additional product that I just started using over the past couple of years, and it's specifically designed for hydrangea. It's called, whoops, I did it again. That one, Hydrate Hydrangea, all right? It is very, very similar to the HydraFlora concept. So with the HydraFlora and the Hydrate Hydrangea and all the rest of the products, it's a concentrated formula. So you add a very small amount to a bucket of plain water. Where the quick dip, you're dipping it straight into this chemical, this product, and into something else, all right? So since you're able to use a very small amount, and just to give you an idea, this little cup, which is 20 cc's, very small amount, that is for 1 gallon of water. Very small amount. So each one of these products, they make a little bit something, they make a different amount. HydraFlora makes 200 gallons from this 1 gallon. That's a lot of buckets, okay? And this costs on average around 20 and 25 bucks. So it's not bad at all. So the amount of money that you spend to use the proper products is about the cost of 1 flower, just 1 flower. So Donald, I believe, spoke earlier, I believe the other designer spoke earlier about a process called stuffing. Stuffing is just adding more product. Right? And from designs, from art, you don't want to put that much in for the art of it. From a business standpoint, you don't want to just keep stuffing the arrangement because there goes the profit, okay? So by just taking one of those out, just 1 flower, you're able to use all this stuff and you're going to be able to extend the life a lot. Is anybody following along? I know this is not as exciting as all this beautiful floral art, but it's just as critical to know, all right? And it will help you fully bloom in our industry. So what do? We go from quick dip to 200 or 300 if you're looking to get it open quicker. Or we go from HydraFlora, right, for 24 hours into 200 for up to a week or 2, depending on the product. And then you go into the flower food for your consumers.
So, I just want to make sure I'm clear about the hydro and the quick dip. If you kind of do the same thing, if you use one, should you still use the other, or it doesn't matter?
You can use one or the other. Yeah, it's just a matter of, in my opinion, the labor-saving aspect of it.
It's also varietal too, right?
I'm sorry?
It's also varietal.
Yeah.
Hydrangeas probably be treated one way or another.
Correct. Yeah, so every botanical is going to have its own unique way. All of these post-harvest products are formulated for the broad spectrum of products. It's safe on all products. It works better on some, a little bit less on others. They're all designed to maintain and level the pH balance and alkalinity in the water, and that's very important for the vase life. Yes?
Sorry, but I don't understand.
Yeah.
So the hydrangea is only for hydrangeas?
No, it is specifically formulated for hydrangeas. A lot of people will think, well, if I cut and dip in allium and stick it in foam, that's great. Well, if that works, let me throw it in a bucket of water. That does nothing. Unless you pour the whole jug in there, right? And that's the other downside about what Miss Lori said is contamination. So that's the other downside that can happen with Quick Dip is a lot of people don't use it properly and they leave it sit out for a very long time or they reuse it over and over and over again. And all that does is harbor bacteria and all they're doing is introducing it to the flour and killing it. So that's why HydroFlora is my favorite when it comes to this scenario, because you're just small amount to a bucket of water. You fill that bucket up. Does anyone know how long it takes to fill a bucket up? So when a lot of people do in our industry, they fill one bucket up, product lives in that bucket for X amount of time. When they're done, they dump that bucket out and they fill up another bucket for the next line of products. Okay. Most homes in America produce 4 gallons of water per minute. So if you only put 2 gallons of water in a bucket, 30 seconds. So would you rather spend 30 seconds over and over and over and over and over again all throughout the week? Or would you rather spend 5 to 10 minutes once a week and fill up all the buckets that you think you need? If you have the storage space for it, why not? I could think of 1,000 different things in designing beautiful art that I would want to be doing with just that 1 minute here and that 1 minute there. So Hydrate Hydrangea is also amazing for Gerber daisies. I just found that out. Remember I said we all learn something all the time? I just found that out. And I'm a tester, so I like to perform tests before I take it to my staff. So I have ran some tests on hydrangea and I ran some tests on Gerber daisies and I have seen a dramatic difference. So I'm sold. I mean, I believe in the product, but I always like to do my own tests. Yeah, Gerber daisies prefer, so again, that's learning the botanical. So Gerber daisies don't like a deep amount of water. Callas don't like a deep amount of water. So general rule of thumb is very soft, mushy type stemmed botanicals don't like deep amount of water. More hardier, stronger stems can live in a little bit deeper of water. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that if you're working with Gerber daisies or callas that you got to fill your vase only 2 inches. For your customer, you can fill it up because you want them to enjoy it and they're going to drink water and it's going to get less and less and less. But from a hydration standpoint and from a storage standpoint, you don't want to put it in deep water because it will rot out the stem and it will kill the botanical faster. So once we hydrate, we store for a little bit, okay? And I mentioned before about up to 2 weeks. So again, have you ever, for the business owners and the retail shops out there, have you ever counted how many buckets or vases you have in your cooler at one time? I did that. I counted it just so I can see. I typically have 100 to 125 to maybe 150, depending on the week, of buckets and vases of botanicals every single week. Imagine changing that every few days, how much labor and how much time that takes. Imagine only having to change that every 2 weeks. By just following a few simple steps and a few processes, saving all that time, giving you all that extra time to design beautiful art and learn new techniques. So all of these things help to do that. And that all leads to higher profits. In a long and about way, it leads to higher profits. So 200 is where it lives for up to 2 weeks. It gives it just enough nutrients to stay alive. It kills bacteria. It helps to improve water uptake. Well, eventually it's got to eat. Eventually it has to have some food. And in the general term, food is sugars. Botanicals need sugars to live. So in the generalized term, FloraLife flower food is sugar. It's flower sugar. Now, I prefer liquid products. I think it's easier to dose them. I think it's easier to maintain them. FloraLife has some amazing products that are for commercial aspects, but you can buy them and use them in your home as well, in your home business. And they have several different things. One in particular is called a dosatron. The other one is called a blend unit. And basically what they're designed is they're little mechanical items that you hook water up to it, and then you set it to the right setting. You drop a hose in the liquid, and then from that point on, all you do is pull the trigger and just fill it. There's no measuring needed. Just the amount of water that goes in, it's automatically blended to the amount of product that you need for that item. So 300 gives it the food that it needs to live and needs to bloom to its fullest potential. Without this, it's just going to die pretty rapidly, okay? So that's the hydration aspect of it, if you want to think of it that way. You start with it improving its water uptake. You give it a little bit of food to stay alive. You give it even more food to bloom. But there's one more step that we can take to keep these botanicals living as long as possible. Yeah.
Okay, so what if you don't have dark food and you do the hydration process? Does that make a difference?
No, because you can still use the same thing. If you have a smaller cooler, you just have 1 or 2 buckets in there, and you can hydrate for 24 hours and then move them to the 200 and let them live there until you're done with them. So never go through the cooler. Then I would do the hydration as cold as possible. So ice, cold water. You don't want warm water in this environment these days. So as cold as possible. And then the same with the next stage. Now, if you're using them like in an event situation and you're getting them on this day and they're hydrating and then you're designing and they're going out the door, then in a sense you can skip some steps. The hydration part is the most important. If you're able to hydrate and give it a stay in some food, that's ideal. That's the perfect storm for skipping anything. But keep the water as cold as possible. All right, that's the best bet. So after we've done the hydration, after we've given it some food, there's one more step that you can do, and that's use a finishing spray. Do the students know what finishing sprays are? Yeah? Do you know that there's different kinds of finishing sprays? Most people in our industry don't. There's a very common one called Crowning Glory, not Crown End Glory. Crowning Glory. Everyone just says, oh, we're just going to crown it. We're going to crown it. That's great. You're going to crown it. But do you know what you're doing to the botanical? Crown is a sealant. Think of like a waxy substance or hairspray for flowers. You know, it's a sealant. It's going to seal all the moisture in. You guys that are in ag, you know that we evaporate. Botanicals evaporate. And when they evaporate, they lose water. When they lose water, they die, right? So crown does lock that moisture in. Some of you guys that did the flowers to wear, some of your botanicals today are dead. They're dead because we didn't give you crown. That's on us. We'll fix that for next year. FloraLife is going to sponsor it. Yep. If I have anything to say about it. So crown is specifically designed to be used with any botanical that has no water source. That's the actual definition of Crown and Glory. Or you use it for a botanical that has met or reached its full lifespan. So we'll use a large blown open rose or a beautiful blown open lily, for example. If you're using that for an event and you want it to stay big and beautiful and lush for that consumer, you spray it with Crown. Make sure you cover both sides, because if you just spray the front, it's going to evaporate from the back. So you want to spray both sides to make it last longer. But if you want your botanical to really live as long as possible, the other product they have is called Finishing Touch. So Finishing Touch is just another step in the hydration process. It just keeps the blossom, allowing it to drink from all of the humidity that's in the cooler and all the humidity that's out in the air. It just helps that botanical live much, much longer. Can you use them in sequence? Absolutely. You go through the hydration process, you spray Finishing Touch on an item, and then if it has reached its lifespan, you spray Crown on it. That's perfectly fine. You can absolutely do that. But Finishing Touch is really the most important one in a finishing spray in a retail environment for your consumers or for your home, because you want the botanical to make it to its fullest extent. If you use Crown on a tight botanical like a rose, it will slow down or possibly prevent it from opening and reaching its fullest potential. So from a business standpoint, if you have a dozen roses and you spray them with Crown and you send them out the door to the consumer, and those roses don't open, what's that person going to call and say? My roses died. I want them replaced, right? And what does that do on our pocketbooks? What's that do for your guys' paychecks when you finally get jobs? It makes it much harder for the business to make money, which makes it much harder to keep you guys employed. So we want to do all of these things to help improve the botanical's lifespan, to have the end consumer, again, whether that be you individually or for your own self, because at that point, you're the end consumer, or to an actual consumer paying customer. Yes, ma'am. That's okay.
So can you count like finishing touch, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to be sending out flowers on Mother's Day, and we know how hot it can be for that.
Yes.
So if I do my arrangement and I spray with finishing touch, and if I do another arrangement and I don't spray with finishing touch, how long will the arrangement that I spray last? How longer it's going to last?
Depends on the actual botanical. So if we're taking apples for apples, if we're saying the exact same bunch of roses or the exact same item in each one, it's on average of 3 to 5 days. So again, it depends on the botanical. Like we all know, tulips don't last extremely long. But if you can add a day or two to tulips by giving it a couple squirts, why not? Right?
On the finishing touch and
crowning. See? Not somebody that's in the industry for a long time. No, it is ready to go in this formula. You do not want to dilute these at all. These other products are in a concentrated formula, with the exception of Quick Dip. Quick Dip you use right out of the bottle. But the other formulas, the other products are a concentrated formula. They each have their own unique concentration, okay? But the finishing touch and the crowning glory is right out of the bottle. She had her hand up first, Miss Lori, sorry.
When should you actually use the finishing touch in the process?
So in my store, everything gets finishing touched as soon as we're done designing, prior to it going into cooler. And then, depending on how we feel or how I feel, I'll give it another spray of finishing touch as it goes out the door. Or if it's for a funeral, for an example, and I feel that that botanical is where I want it to be, then I'll crown it. But everything gets finishing touch beforehand. She was first.
So walk me through the steps in the sense that you're filling up a bucket on Monday and you're adding Quick Dip and 200.
Yes.
So then how long are you sitting that bucket before you're putting flowers? And or are you putting the next step, which is 300, at another time, like on Thursday?
So it all depends on what you're doing with the botanical. And what I mean by that is if you are doing Quick Dip to 200, the 200, it can live in that 200 for up to 2 weeks. Yeah, in my shop, what we do is I use HydroFlora, right? So what we do is we fill up about a dozen buckets with HydroFlora. Everything that when we cut it and drop it, it stays there for 24 hours. No one is allowed to touch it. Where's my mentee? We're now calling it the MC Hammer section. Don't touch this. No. Right, so hold on, Lori. So then from there, it stays in the 200 for that 2-week time frame. At that point in time, when it's ready to go to the consumer, whether you're ready to design it into a vase or design it in your Oasis floral foam that has been soaking in your flower food mixture, then that's when you're introducing the sugars, is at the end consumer level. Now, again, if you're an event florist and you want it to open up faster, then you skip the 200, you go right into the 300. No. The 200 bucket stays filled. I just take the product out of it and move it. So in my store, again, we go from 100, which is grower wrapped buckets. Everything is still in its grower wrapper. Then we take them out, open up the wrappers, clean it the rest of the way, give it I'm a old school, I recut again, and I put it into 200. And that's where it stays for 2 weeks, up to 2 weeks. And then as my designers design and they go into our display cooler and they grab this individual stems to create all this beautiful floral art, it goes into 300, whether it goes into a glass vase or into floral foam. Theoretically, yes, because you're taking it raw, like long stem, and you're cutting it for the design.
So 300 basically go into your bucket of water and into your vases or Oasis. Yeah, or Oasis. Go in the center and the cup. So
Yep.
that one is not in the bucket. It's
Right.
in your jar or
Right. And to take it one step further for the best end consumer, when we're talking about the flower food and designing in a glass vase, ideally you should design in just plain water, because as we're putting stuff in, that water's getting all nasty and mucky and all this other stuff. So ideally, and it's not going to harm the botanical by being cut and put in plain water for a matter of a few minutes. So if you put it in plain water first, design in plain water, then what we do at our shop is we pick that up, we dump that out, we fill it with 300, the 300 mixture, we drop it back in, we spray it with finishing touch, into the cooler it goes. So that's the process. Yeah, for the 200, I reuse that for 2 weeks. The 100, I reuse for 2 weeks as well, but primarily I use it for 1 week. So what we do is with the 100, we have our fresh water that we filled up on Monday. That gets our Tuesday product, and that Tuesday product eventually works its way into 200. Well, then that 1 week that I filled up on Monday The following week, I'll move into my MC Hammer section. So that way, when it's already gone through the hydration process and I have a sold item that I need to save for an order for tomorrow, the next day, and I'm on my last bunch, it goes into there and it maintains its hydration in the HydroFlora because it still is going to go into the sugars when we design. So I get 2 weeks out of my HydroFlora buckets and my 200 buckets. Okay? I think, Randy, you had a question? Okay, so Express is specifically, okay, so for the students, we have several lines of these products. One of them is called Express, one of them is called Ultra. Express is what they came out with several years ago, and it's formulated as a no-cut formula. Now again, I'm old school, so I cut everything, right? But the no-cut formula, what it's designed to do is, so for the ag students, when you cut a botanical, what happens to the ends of that botanical? Carbohydrates form, blocking the stem. Think of a straw when it hits the bottom of your glass, and it's like, and it collapses on itself, right? So when that botanical is cut, it starts to form the carbohydrates, and it stops it from drinking. With the the Express, what it's designed to do is break down those carbohydrates and improve water uptake. Now, FloraLife sent me to their facility for extensive training, and another little bit of information that I got was because I had said to them, I was like, I'm old school. I cut everything. So I don't use Express. And they're like, Ralph, if you cut it and use it in Express, it's even better. So you can still use Express and cut. It's not one or the other. It's how you feel more comfortable. It is a time-saving factor for the students. You guys ever heard of Symposium for Aifd, right? It's our largest convention. Well, this past year, I was part of a team of 4. We called ourselves Core 4 that put that entire thing on. And we went through, what was it? It was 2 tractor trailers, so it was like 50 pallets of product. 52 pallets. And there's like 30 to 50 boxes per pallet, depending on the size box, right? Yep. 26 pallets of buckets. So at Symposium, we used Express because there's just not enough time to cut. I'm sorry? Yeah, we used Hydrate, I believe, right? So we used Express because there's just not enough time in that setting to process all those flowers and get them to the designers. We actually used Express here for our designers. One of our people were very kind enough to bring a gallon of Express, and we used it up.
This is my big problem. Well, you have a really big shop, and you have 3 huge containers of, that you're going to use with the dosatron. Will you guys please create the top of the dosatron and the nozzles the same color as the products so that we know that helps mark those products?
I can make that suggestion. I have labels on mine. So at my shop, again, I've had a couple of people here that have been to my shop. At my shop, what I personally did was I have 3 dosatrons. I have 1 for HydroFlora, 1 for holding, and 1 for flower food. And each one of them, has a label on it that says exactly that. Hydrate, storage.
That label, but if you really crazy, I thought the Oasis is the right color so that my delivery people who want to help me process.
Yeah, a lot of the triggers, depending on which one you get, the nozzle unscrews because I've extended them to make it easier, so I don't have to bend over and fill something. And you can change that color as well. So it's a very simple process. Design Master makes a beautiful paint that we can spray on plastic and change and alter the color of it. So we can definitely do that. So what I did at my shop was I have all of those dosatrons all plumbed into the plumbing of my building, and then in my design rooms, I have 3 different design rooms in my shop. In my design rooms, the flower food is plumbed right into that room for the designers. So the designers do not have to leave their station very far to go through that process of designing, dumping, and refilling. It's all right there for them. Less steps. If you guys cook, there's this like triangle of cooking, stove, refrigerator, sink. In a flower shop, it's basically the same thing. You try to set up your workstation to have that triangle. Now, sometimes that triangle is a little bit far because the cooler's a little bit far away from your station, but you try to form that triangle. Donald was talking about it earlier, placing your buckets nearby when you're working. That's forming your triangle of design. Okay, what's up?
Okay, so the crowning.
Crowning, Lori, yes.
Okay, so you spray that from the front and the back. Well, what about with finishing touch? Do you spray it from the front and the back?
So it doesn't matter as much as the crown does because of the specifics of what you're using crown for, okay? But it's not going to hurt it. So like what I do is when I'm processing, I'm a processor. Okay, I'm a designer. I design every single day. But as an owner, I process. My hand touches almost every single stem in my shop. And a lot of people go, well, as an owner, why do you do that? Because that's my money. And if it's mishandled, it costs me more money. And I like money. So if I make sure that it goes through all the proper steps and it's handled correctly, it's not going to die prematurely. It's going to get to its fullest extent. Do we ever get some bad product? Absolutely, we all do. It's the game we live in, and that's not the grower's fault, not the wholesaler's fault. Sometimes it just happens, right? But we want to give it all the best opportunity to survive. So spraying it with finishing touch on both sides gives it the best chance. So like if I'm doing, let's just say stock, right? Stock's a relatively delicate flower in most situations. Okay, there's all sorts of rumors on how you should take care of it. Me, HydroFlora 100 for 24 hours minimum, in the 200 for up to 2 weeks, and then finishing or crown depending on the scenario. Yes, my stock lasts 2 weeks. Yes, my snaps last 2 weeks. And then a week for the consumer, which a lot of people are like, that doesn't happen. Yes, it does. Buy good product, buy from good farms, treat it properly when you get to your location, give it the proper foods, and it will live to its fullest extent. So we spray it, all the sides, like when I'm cleaning stock, when I'm processing stock, I spray the whole bunch, and then I just give it, put it off to the side, let it dry a little bit while I work on the next thing, and then I recut and into my 200.
Does it need to dry? If you make something that needs to go out first thing?
So the instructions say to let dry, because everyone's cooler is different, and we don't know your actual cooler environments. Floral industry, ideally you want high humidity coolers, but there are certain coolers out there that aren't high humidity. So the instructions, the way it's formulated, is the best scenario is to let it dry first. I skip that step. I know my coolers, I know my product. I don't have time to have my arrangements sitting there drying. I gotta go. I got the next thing I gotta do. So we go right into the cooler, and I've never had a problem with it. I've been doing that for 20-something years. So, does somebody else have another question before yes?
In the event world of where I live,
Yep.
you get your stock in on Tuesday, it's going out on Saturday. So we would do.
Ideally, I'm going to get you guys all to switch to HydroFlora 100 because it is in my opinion, a more versatile, superior product when it comes to all the processes. 24 hours is my always suggestion. So if you want it to, so stock is one of those things where you want it to fluff out, right? So it needs the sugars to fluff out. Then we go to 300. Then you arrange when you're ready. Yeah, so if you're going straight from a hydrating product and you're ripping it open, going right into foam or right into vases, yes, it's going straight into 300 that way. If you're looking to get it fluffed out before you start your processing of designing, then you put it straight in the 300 bucket and let that sit for the day or two, depending on your personal life. Then you arrange. Yeah, so it just depends on the actual botanical. Sometimes stock comes in really blue. I dry store my stock for 7 days. 7 days. I dry store my stock for 7 days. I never have a problem with it. There's one additional step that I do with stock in particular. So with stock, snaps, bells, and delft, okay, I store all of those in upright boxes. A lot of those are, as we know, they are geotropic. They grow away from gravity. Not all of them, but some of them do. So by storing them in an upright box, that helps to prevent that for one. What I do with those particular items is sometimes they come in so tightly wrapped that if you leave them this way, they mold. So I just give it a little shake, and then I drop it back in the box. Never cut it. I clean it as I need to. Keep it in the grower wrapper. I pull the grower wrapper down, clean a little bit, slide the grower wrap back on, give it a little shake, right into the upright box, right into the cooler.
You don't seal them back up in the box. You just.
No, I seal the box up. I close the box. Yeah, absolutely.
So you can fluff them and still fit them back in the box?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm transferring it from, in my situation, I'm transferring stock from that usually comes in a flat box to an upright box. And the upright boxes that I have are fairly large, and I typically store 2 items per upright box. So I'll mix like snaps and stock in one box and Delphin bells in another and stuff like that.
So it's not the shipping box anymore that you're using an upright box?
I'm using an upright box that I have recycled. So when I buy a certain product, I buy my snaps from Guatemala, and Guatemalan snaps come in an upright box already. So all we do is we reuse that box 2 or 3 or 4 times until we don't like it anymore, and then we throw it out. We're getting snaps in every 2 weeks, so I'm getting a new box every 2 weeks. We've got like 4 or 6 of those boxes on hand all the time. We put a piece of masking tape on the side, a couple strips of masking tape, and then we use blue painter's tape, and we just write what's in it, we write the date of it, stick it on there, and then we just peel that off and relabel it and just keep reusing it. We basically do that process of labeling for all of our boxes. Because we're at a certain point, you're going to take a box of flowers that had, we'll say 200 stems in it, and now it's down to 100 or 75. So I consolidate that. I might buy a solid box of white carnations, pink, red, whatever. And by the end of the 2 weeks, I'm down to 2 bunches of each. So now I make my own mix box and throw out the other boxes. Making more room in my cooler for the next round of 50, 7,500 boxes. I don't label my buckets, but I label my boxes because it's just easier for me to walk into my cooler and glance at all the boxes and go, what do we need? There it is, and pull that box down. So, I mean, when you guys get into the industry, you'll see that all the boxes have grower labels on them. You need like a PhD to understand the grower label. Yeah, right? The least they can do is put a packed on date or born on date or something like that, right? So, but yeah, there's a lot of information on a grower label, and you do learn what those things mean, but they're smaller print, and a lot of us that are getting older, you know, we got a little bit of some eyesight issues, and I just, honestly, I don't have the time. I want to glance in at 50 boxes and just read all the labels really quickly and scan them. Yeah, the little hole, and try to go inside and go, what's in that box, right? All right, so we were talking about thin, yes, ma'am. So bleach in general, it does its job. It kills bacteria. Did you know that as soon as you don't smell bleach, it doesn't work? So it's a short-term thing. So the idea, the home remedy of squirting bleach or dropping bleach into a bucket of water to kill bacteria, it does work. But you don't need to do that because these products are specifically formulated to kill bacteria. Yeah, it's the RVB, which is, yeah, the RVB is basically the HydroFlor. It's just their version of it. And that, what you're talking about is that slow release tablet because they have a liquid RVB as well. So it's a slow release. So it's basically, it's killing bacteria. You do not have to buy the other stuff. No.
You only buy FloraLife.
You only buy FloraLife. Yeah. Cristal does not support our floral family as much as Smithers Oasis does. So we support the people that support us. So, cha-ching, no. So I am going to teach you guys, I'm going to tell you guys about a hack. All right, Benjamin, you were asking me about this earlier. So here's your little bit of nugget. I told him he had to wait. So a lot of us in the industry, we use Crown all the time, right? Because it's just part of what we do, right? And you put that into a spray bottle or you buy it in a spray bottle. Well, for a lot of us that use it on a regular, consistent basis, we know that after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months, it no longer works. It gets all gooked up. It's like snot just hanging everywhere from it. No matter what you do, you can't get that snot out and stuck up in there. Does everybody know what this is? Febreze fabric spray, okay? There is something with the mechanical components of what is inside this trigger does not gunk up. I have had my same, now it's not this bottle, but I have had this type of bottle, same bottle, for 2 years, sitting on my station. We have we have Finishing Touch and the Crown in Febreze bottles. So yes, when you first get it, it smells like Febreze. Wash it out the first few times. Yeah, so the first few times you spray it, you're going to get a little bit of Febreze smell, but I promise you it goes away relatively fast. Okay, just after a few times. Yeah, like the garden sprayers. Yeah, I mean, some of us just like to, you know, this is easier to bring on an event with you or, smaller versions of this. So this is hack number 1. This is not industry related, although I said to you guys earlier, I was at FloraLife for some training, right? And that room is filled with scientists talking about all the scientific parts of all this stuff. And honestly, a lot of that went, phew, right? I was like, just like you guys, I was like, but what if this? And I got my answer, and the rest of it went, phew. Right? So I pulled one of the scientists aside and I said, you guys really have to do something about your crown bottles. And he's like, what do you mean? And I told him this, right? I'm there for 3 days. At the end of the day, the end of the 3rd day, when I'm getting ready to leave, that one scientist comes up to me and goes, what was it again that you were talking about the crown bottles? And I was like, Febreze. And he's like, Febreze? I was like, yeah, look, Amazon, Febreze. He goes, I'm going to buy some and I'm going to dismantle this and I'm going to see if we can introduce this in our next product development line. So, if you see a change in the crown bottles, that was me. Tell them I want a royalty. Yeah. Yes, Lauren.
I used to, just as my wife said, I used to fertilize my garden, and we put CBD in there. It's been cleaning, and that's how we spray the inside of the water filtration.
Okay. Well, that's a great idea for DCD. I'm going to get into DCD in a second on the use of that, because I know the students probably have no idea what DCD is. But I'm going to touch base on one other item really quick. So I talked to you guys about dosing correctly, all right? And I'm a component of liquid. I like liquid. I think it's the easiest way to dose. A lot of these products, particularly the flower food, comes in a powder formula, okay? There are some advancements in the powder formula to make it easier for the end consumer. They have dissolvable packets that you just throw in a set amount of water. They have different size packets for different amount of water. You just throw it in, it's eco-friendly, the paper dissolves, and it feeds. Great. But in the industry, we just go, a little more food, maybe a little more, I may just add a little bit more. That's bad. Proper dosing is key. So if you're going to use powder, take the time, read the label, set some type of system up that you know that 2 gallons of water or 1 gallon of water gets a certain amount of quarter cup or whatever the measurement is in the powder, and stick to that system because you don't want to overdose. Overdosing is worse than not dosing at all right? But they make the dosing systems. They make the blend unit. Those are items that are mechanical. They hang on your wall. You drop the hose in and you just pull the trigger and you go. Well, we have an item called Quick Mix. So you guys know Green Glow? Back in the day, when you put the Green Glow stuff in here, you hooked it to your garden hose and you fertilized your lawn. Well, basically, this is the same concept. You put your food in here, put your liquid, you set the dial to the liquid that's in here, and you pull the trigger and squeeze, and it doses it right there for you. Now, I ran a test. This runs a little bit slower than the Dosatron does because of the volume. The nozzle's a little bit smaller than the Dosatron's a little bit bigger, but only by a few seconds. Instead of taking 30 seconds, it might take 45 seconds. So this is great for small shops. It's a brand new product, brand new item. Been out for about a year, okay? So it's a brand new product. Ask your wholesaler for it. It is also available on FloraLifeShop.com, I believe is the technical name for it, right? FloraLifeShop.com, and they'll ship it directly to you. So this one, you add the liquid to it, you set it to the right dosing, you fill it up. So this is great in the event world because lots of times you have to refill stuff on location. You got to add water to arrangements you already did. You bring one of these bad boys along, you stick your hose in here. Like when I do large events and I'm filling up big jugs, I tap into their hose. I don't even I bypass the kitchen. I'm like, just give me the hose. And I bring a little portable roll-up hose and I just hook it up and I'm good to go. So you can hook it right to this and you can fill up whatever thing you want. Or if we're at an association like this or a thing like this, one of these on hand, you can put your product in there, pull the trigger, fill the buckets up, and it's proper dosing. And you can reuse this one over and over again because the nozzle changes to the setting. So this is really, really cool. And this is something you guys can use at home too when you start out in processing because it's simple, it's not too expensive, and it gets your foot in the door, if you want to call it that, in the proper processing. All right? So I spoke earlier about bacteria. Bacteria does what? Kills our flowers, right? So when I was a kid and my grandfather said, come to work with me today, he made me in particularly do 2 things to start off. One was fill water tubes because back then we didn't have Oasis. So everything went, and sympathy work went in water tubes and on big sheets of styrofoam and scrub buckets, right? And a lot of shops do it today. They scrub buckets. The low man on the totem pole or whoever that employee pissed off that owner that week, and they make them scrub some buckets to get restitution. So, DCD, okay? You use DCD. It's a diluted formula. Depending on what you're using it for is depending on the amount you dilute it, but it is a diluted formula. And if you start with a clean bucket, so either a brand new bucket that's never had dirt or one that has been scrubbed and cleaned, and you use DCD on it, you will never, and I'll say that again, never have to scrub another bucket. DCD is specifically designed to kill bacteria on contact. But here's the key. It's designed to form an invisible layer that continues to kill bacteria. And the more you spray on it, the more layers you put, the better it becomes. It also, and here's a side benefit of it, it also helps buckets from not sticking together. If you let the bucket dry fully before stacking. If you stack your wet buckets, you're just introducing the opportunity for more bacteria. So in my shop, at the end of our 2 weeks, we dump the bucket, we give it a quick rinse, we spray it with DCD, and I flip it on a step to dry. I let it hang over the edge. I mean, think about like when you wash dishes, you put them on a flat surface, it gets all condensation in there, you gotta leave it on a drying rack. Well, we do the same thing. We leave it on the step, so air gets up in there, we let it dry overnight, we then restack our bucket. I never have a bucket stick, only if it's a missized bucket. If one of my staff members that takes a bucket and crams it down into one it wasn't supposed to, then yeah, it's gonna get stuck. But that's their fault, not the DCD, the product's fault. So just this alone is gonna save all sorts of times. Yes, done.
Are you going to clean the bucket outside too? And stack the bucket?
It depends on the bucket. So it's not gonna hurt it. If you let your buckets get filthy on the outside, rinse it off, wipe it off, and then give it a spray of DCD, it's absolutely not going to hurt it in any way, shape, or form. It's going to just help it. You know, it all depends on the environment. The inside we know is getting dirty because we're filling it with water, we're filling it with stems, get stems in and so on and so forth. Now I will say that DCD is not going to make your bucket all sparkly white. It's not going to whiten it. So if you really want a white bucket, just for whatever reason, then go ahead, use some bleach and clean it. Let it dry, then put DCD back in it. Because the DCD needs to build up. And if you want to scrub them once a month or once a year, I'm not going to stop you. I just haven't scrubbed the bucket in 15 years at my shop. Yeah, and you stack it on the outside. Yeah, so it depends on how dirty that outside has gotten. If you're OCD like me and you clean buckets and wipe them down, because really all that it takes is a quick wipe. Sometimes I'll take a rag and spray with DCD and just wipe the thing. Same thing with like cleaning your cooler, if you think of it the same way. Spray the DCD, give it a little wipe, walk away. You do not want to rinse. You do not want to rinse DCD off. You want to let it dry in. Did you know that DCD kills the coronavirus? FloraLife, during the coronavirus crisis, sent a buttload of this stuff all over the world to help kill the coronavirus. It does not mean that it's harmful for you. It is safe on all botanicals. You can literally spray this right on a flower bloom and it will do nothing to it. It will not harm it. So use it properly, use all the products properly, and you're gonna extend your vase life a lot. And that's going to lead to higher profits and happier customers. Yeah, so DCD is not just designed to clean your buckets. It is a cleaner all around. You should be cleaning your tools. Your tools will harbor bacteria, so you should be cleaning your tools, right? So DCD is the thing that you want to clean. I think my time is up, right? My time is up. So what I'm going to do really quick before I leave, because my goal here today was to talk to you about the processing steps, all right? But the end result to that is, in a business sense, is to make money. That's why I provided you with the COGS breakdown, okay? It is a very simple formula, and it's industry standard, so this is not something I made up, okay? It's just not too informed. People are not informed about this. And I'm going to break it down really simple. I call it the 30-30-30-10 rule. So when you have 100% of something, 30% goes to all your COGS, 30% goes to all of your wages, including benefits and matching taxes, 30% goes to all your facility expenses, so basically everything that didn't fall into the first two categories. That leaves you 10% net profit. So that is a fully operating, functioning flower shop functions on 10% profit. Now, if you're a good steward, and you're able to help to keep these other categories reduced, then all that's going to do is increase your profit, which in turn means that you can keep your employees happier. You can put the money back in your business to help your business grow like I did, take vacations, well-deserved vacations, because there's too many flower shop owners out there that are working really, really hard and not making any money and closing down. And employees are not getting paid, and they're working for free, and they're working for low wages. So as owners, we owe it to our business and we owe it to our employees to be better stewards of our money. Set this formula, look at it, do a deep dive with your accountant into your books, separate everything up, and over a course of a few months to a year, you'll get very used to this process. And I promise you, you will start to see improvements in your net profit. And eventually you'll be like, oh my God, I'm 20, 30% profit. If you break 40%, please call me and tell me your secret. So that is all I got for today. I really do hope you all got some great information. I know it's hard. I know it's hard to absorb all this stuff. I do want to thank my sponsor, FloraLife, a division of Smithers Oasis, because without FloraLife, I wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't have these amazing products, and we wouldn't be able to do and create the floral art that we all do. So I have one little saying that I typically always say, and I say it differently in different ways. So if you heard me say it once before, I might say it different now. But we're all artists. Every one of us, different levels of artists. I am no Donald Jim, but I still consider myself a floral artist. Okay? So we're all floral artists. Wouldn't you rather be, or would you rather be a broke, starving artist or a successful, profitable artist? I take profitability any day, right? Like I said earlier, I love money. So thank you again. Thank you for having me. I put my YouTube channel on there, and my social media is easy to get to. Like I said before when we were talking about evaluating, I'm an open book. My social media DMs are all open. I communicate with designers, FFA students, and owners all throughout the world and country. If you ever have a question about anything, please feel free to ask me. If I don't know the answer, I know somebody that does. So I will get you that answer. Okay? Thank you again.
So you guys